One of the digital literacies I hadn't thought deeply about before this week was infographics. I knew infographics had been around for decades and that they were a quick visual way to represent information, but I hadn't put a lot of thought into how they could distort information. I also didn't know there were tools, other than graphs and pie charts, where students could make newspaper and magazine quality visuals. After attending the infogram session, I'm now very interested in devoting time in a media studies unit to examining infographics. I realized over the course of this week that I am more of a demystifier than I thought. I feel compelled to expose or examine how visual information without context can very much be misleading. Another one of the digital literacies I learned more about this week was online curation. It was only after attending the Summer Institute that I realized how many online curation tools exist, and for different purposes. Social curation, like with social networking sites, interest curation, like with Pinterest, and academic curation, like with Symbaloo, Guru, and Evernote. There's also a new hybrid curation tool I learned about, which is Storify, and it can be used for academic or social purposes, or both. Like when our dyad group expressed the US's involvement in foreign affairs by drawing on social and multimedia bits. After this week, I realized how helpful and timely it is for teachers to start adopting these curation tools in the classroom. Since the Web 2.0, with its web browsing, bookmarking tools, and the rise of social networking sites where people curate their personal profile pages, online curation in its various forms and for various purposes seems to have taken off. And this is no doubt because people encounter much more information on a daily basis on the web. There is a natural reaction to want to pull, save, and organize everything that is encountered that has relevance to an individual. And this is for two reasons: to reference at a later date, and to perform one's identity. Especially for adolescents who are exploring their emerging identities and want to present their likes, interests, and beliefs for others. Another digital literacy I was able to explore in more depth through the lesson I created with my dyad partner was how to teach students how to have positive and productive online dialogues. I knew there was a need to teach students the skills of how to exist in an online environment, but I wasn't sure the best way to do this. My partner and I developed a lesson to teach students how to engage in knowledge generation through these online discussions. We developed a lesson to teach students how to use reputable multimedia supports when discussing an issue. The internet is a dynamic space and information comes in many forms, so it's important now to teach adolescents how to mine these sources and integrate them appropriately to make strong, well-supported claims. My original definition of digital literacy started out like this. Digital literacy is a gray area when it comes to defining it. For some people, it may involve navigating online sources like news, magazines, blog sites, company websites, and so on. For others, it may be the literacy involved in navigating computer programs, hardware, and software, knowing how to use a variety of tech-related tools, or having the skills and confidence to troubleshoot and try a variety of possible options in order to figure out a new program. For me, the term digital literacy involves both. It is creating and consuming digital products. It is also the ability to analyze what and how information is presented in the digital world. For example, if one is on a news website, he is able to open up the links, play the videos, launch slideshows. But they're also aware of the thought behind the architecture of the site, knowing that the goal of the news source is to have people stay as long as possible on their site. Also, it would mean that the user is aware of the targeted marketing or the ads that appear in the margins, and how the site is able to mine for information in a user's online activity and tailor the ads for that person. So this was my original interpretation of digital literacies. However, I wasn't confident in my definition, and when Bill asked us to post to the Ning our definitions of digital literacy, I wasn't comfortable posting the second half of my definition, which talked about teaching students the architecture behind certain digital tools like websites. So I chose not to include this part of my definition, as other people on Sunday talked more about digital literacies being the creation of things like video and music and so on. However, after attending the Roots opening session with Renee on Sunday and being taught that digital literacies includes a variety of elements, one of which is demystifying the architecture and the constructs and the manipulations of different digital tools, I started to feel more comfortable in my definition. Then, when Doug Rushkoff did his keynote speech about program or being programmed, I felt confirmed or affirmed in my definition. It is important to teach students how to navigate these digital tools and how to be aware of the inherent manipulations in them. So I felt more confident. The other way that my definition of digital literacies evolved is after speaking with Hiller Spires as Dave and I were preparing our digital literacies lesson plan, and we talked about how reading has evolved. Online digital reading is no longer the static version that it used to be. There's embedded links, there's video, there's images and interactive widgets that are now included in many digital texts. So this highlighted for me the need to teach students how to read online texts. Also supporting that was Julie Coyro's article about reading as thinking. Reading this article brought to the forefront of my consciousness the vast differences in online and offline reading and how to assist students in this area. Online reading really is complex and layered, it's multifaceted, and it's potentially very overwhelming for the untrained reader. It is really a new skill, and so I'm definitely going to implement Coyro's flexible 4-stage reading plan when teaching my students how to engage in digital and media literacy. Renee Hobbs's report also affirmed my definition when she talked about the fact that we define digital and media literacy as a constellation of life skills that are necessary for full participation in our media-saturated information society. And she also goes on to explain that digital literacy can improve people's lives by helping them to make positive choices and navigate their world and the information they're exposed to, in addition to using digital tools for self-expression. So all of these readings and presentations and informal conversations really help to shape my new definition of digital literacy, which I feel comfortable affirming now is the ability to create and communicate meaning using various tools and literacies. And it's also the ability to navigate and troubleshoot computer hardware and software. And finally, it's the ability to critically analyze the information in and structure of digital sources.